What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and welcome back. You can go ahead and hit the subscribe button because if you have good taste, you will not be disappointed. Today we are discussing the very horrible case of Stephen Griffiths, a very sick man and a Capricorn as well. Honestly, I feel like if y'all don't want to claim him in the comments, I can't even blame y'all because I don't feel like, well, I don't know. He might have given Capricorn in certain aspects. So let me not, now that I think about it. Yeah, so without further ado, let's get right into the story, shall we? Stephen Griffiths was born on December 24th of 1969 over in England, and he is the oldest of 3 children. His father works as a salesman and his mother works as a telephonist, which I'm not quite sure what that is, but if I had to guess, I would say some sort of operator maybe. Mama had a job, and his parents try their best to make their family dynamic work, but from what I read, his mother, Moira, was a very difficult woman, okay? She was a wild card. And when Stephen is only 13 years old, the two of them divorce and go their separate ways, and Stephen goes to live with Moira. All 3 of the children actually go live with Moira, and Moira is described as being a very troublesome, unstable woman with a very lengthy criminal record. And there were allegedly times where Stephen would stand in his bedroom window at night and watch her have relations with men in their backyard. They say sometimes there'll be more men than one, which of course, if it was, that's her business. But in front of your child, that's a bit much. Stephen's father saves up enough money to send him to a nicer school, which turns out to actually be the same school that John High attended, the Assabath murder. And if you don't know about him, we have covered him on the channel before. I don't know if they were breeding serial killers up there, child. From a very early age, Stephen displays interest in violence, and he is a very creepy little boy. He spends a lot of his time not playing with other children, but instead catching, torturing, and skinning birds. So as you can imagine, other kids really don't even want to fool with him like that anyway, which he is actually fine with. By the time he reaches his late teen years, he's begun shoplifting regularly, as well as stealing things from his classmates in the local supermarkets. And one of these instances where he's out here stealing out of a store, the store manager is made aware that he is in there stealing. And when he approaches young Stephen, he slashes the store manager with a knife. And for this offense, he spends 3 years in jail. Now, while he is in jail, he speaks with a psychiatrist that evaluates him. This psychiatrist notes that he is preoccupied with murder and has admitted to oftentimes fantasizing about committing it. Even still, once his time is served, he is released back into society amongst the masses without any type of supervision. And it is not long before he finds himself in trouble yet again. He is sentenced to 100 hours of community service for carrying an air pistol that he had been using to hunt down birds and dissect them. He was still up to that old hobby, which is another behavior that should have raised a lot of red flags. But no, he is evaluated by yet another psychiatrist who diagnoses him as a sadistic schizoid psychopath. And this psychiatrist actually expresses their concern or belief that Stephen will one day become a killer. He is way too preoccupied and interested, and not from an aspect of finding it fascinating or interesting just as a viewer. No, he wants to take the hands-on approach, have a little experience of his own. And this is something that he speaks very freely about. When I tell you the red flags were red flagging, okay, because the following year he lands himself right back in jail again for 2 years after he holds a girl at knife point. And after being released this time, Stephen really dives into his morbid interest, reading all the time about true crime and obsessing specifically over Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, who we have also covered on this channel, shameless plug. The subject altogether of true crime really interests him, but something about Peter he really likes and respects. Now, around the age of 30 in 2001, Stephen develops this interest in reptiles and he begins collecting them. He gets himself a 4-foot-long monitor lizard that he walks through the neighborhood on a dog leash. And that's not even the weird part. The weird part is he is dressed in a full leather trench coat with his hair slicked back and wearing dark sunglasses. He dresses like this, walking his lizard, no matter what the weather is. okay? It could be hotter than fish grease. And this is how he is dressed outside. The neighbors, much like the children in his childhood, find him to be very strange. They try to keep their distance from him for the most part. Some of them actually have come forward and said that he was quite friendly, whereas others complained about him and found him to be very odd and referred to him as Lizard Man. He also has this little team of small lizards that he would take out in public as well, and oftentimes take out to nightclubs, like on his shoulder. And actually, back in the day when I was in nightclubs, child, they used to do that, and I always thought that was so weird. Now, in addition to casually eating us up on MySpace, Stephen is about his education, earning himself a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Bradford. And a year after earning his bachelor's degree, he decides to go to grad school to channel this interest in murder that just will not leave him. He enrolls in a PhD program at the same university for homicide studies and becomes a literal student of serial killing. And he spends a lot of his downtime when he is not studying shirtless on MySpace, where he goes by the name Then Pariah, the bloodbath artist, a self-proclaimed misanthrope who brought hate into heaven, end quote. And there are several things about his profile that are very off-putting aside from him being shirtless. He posts his mood as evil, and this whole MySpace page is seemingly an outlet for a very violent alter ego. One of his posts reads, "What will this pseudo-human do, one wonders? Poor Stephen pretended to be me, but he was only the wrapping. He knew toward the end that I supplied the inner core of iron, hatred bound tightly in flesh. At very last, the time has come to act out." Over the years, the closest thing that Stephen's really had to having a friend is his relationship with the ladies of the evening that he patronizes on the regular. He is known by the local sex workers to pay really well for their services, whether the services are sexual or someone to just sit and listen to him or talk to him. One of the ladies that spends a lot of time with Stephen grows to see him as a brother figure. He had at times taken her in, provided for her, cleaned her clothes, and allowed her to sleep in his apartment at times where she had had nowhere else to go. None of the girls see him as dangerous or have a clue about not only what he's capable of, but what he has been planning. June 22nd of 2009, the now 40-year-old Stephen invites 43-year-old Susan Rushworth back to his apartment where he lives alone in the heart of Bradford's red light district. Now, Susan is a mother of 3 children. She has been struggling with addiction for quite some time now, off and on, and she uses sex work to fund her lifestyle. The girls are no stranger to Stephen, of course, but this encounter would be nothing like the previous ones. Stephen has decided that tonight will be the night that he unleashes this inner demon. At some point during the night, he, using a crossbow, kills Susan and afterward dismembers her in his bathtub. He cooks parts of her to taste, and he packages and freezes other parts of her that he plans on consuming later, then divides the rest amongst garbage bags that he tosses into a nearby lake. Susan is reported missing, and minimal search efforts are made to find her, but to no avail. It is as if she has simply disappeared. Stephen Griffiths, after nearly 4 decades of fantasizing about murder, has finally claimed his very first victim. He sees this as just the beginning. He has now established his MO as well as his victim profile, and now he just needs a name for himself. There is the Yorkshire Ripper that he idolizes, Acid Bath murderer, who is an alumni of his school. After giving it much consideration, he decides to dub himself the Crossbow Cannibal. Now, despite him carrying out this act, enjoying it, and seemingly getting away with it, he waits until the following year, nearly a whole year, to claim his next victim. In late April of 2010, 31-year-old Shelley Armitage disappears similarly to Susan. She is another woman who was working in the red light district, and he had led her back to his place under the guise of him soliciting her services for the evening, but instead ends up killing her in a similar fashion. But this time, he sets up his phone to record himself committing the act, grotesquely narrating his actions. Shelley had been hog-tied with green twine, and the words "my sex slave" had been painted on her back. He introduces himself and his victim saying, "I am Van Pariah. I am the bloodbath artist. There's a model who will be assisting me." He, of course, then proceeds to dismember her, and he afterward, the same way he had done with his previous victim, decides which parts of her he wants to keep and eat and which parts of her he wants to dispose of. Now, once he prepares the parts of her he wants to dispose of, he gets on the train, the public train, to transport the remains and goes down to the river and tosses the bags in. He then takes the train back to his apartment, but during his commute home, he leaves his phone on the train. His phone ends up in possession of several people who watch the footage and is even sold twice before it is turned over to the police. In the meantime, Stephen goes after yet another victim, 36-year-old Suzanne. He picks her up on May 24th of 2010 and takes her back to his apartment, but instead of treating her like the other two women and killing her right away, he holds her captive inside of his apartment for 2 whole days. While Stephen was holding her captive, she had been trying her best to break free of the bondage that he had her in, and she finally reaches the point that she is able to break free. Suzanne makes it out of his front door and runs down the hall as he chases her armed with his crossbow. As she is running, he stops and fires a shot, hitting her in the back of the head, and then puts his crossbow and arms above his head like he's doing some sort of celebratory dance. But as he turns around, he notices a security camera there that has captured the entire thing. Stephen gives the camera the finger before dragging Suzanne back to his apartment. Within an hour, he is back out on the prowl in the streets looking for another victim. He encounters 28-year-old Rosalind and convinces her to join him back at his apartment. The two of them walk toward his apartment. Cameras do catch them up until a certain point, and at some point, she changes her mind about going back to his place, and he doesn't attempt to change her mind back or convince her to join him. Unsuccessful in his efforts to find another victim before sunrise, he just returns back to his apartment and finishes what he's already started with Suzanne. He does the exact same thing with her that he had done with his previous victims, which is packaging parts of her and dumping the rest in a nearby lake. The following Monday morning, an employee of the apartment building that he lives in is reviewing the security footage from over the weekend, and they are shocked and horrified to find what Stephen has been up to in the hallways. They immediately alert law enforcement, who come out and review the footage before raiding Stephen's apartment, where he was sitting calmly waiting for them. He had figured that it was very likely that come Monday morning, somebody was going to see that footage and call the police. He confesses to all of his crimes. He even claims to have eaten his third and most recent victim raw. He shows the responding officers his refrigerator, his freezer full of the packaged remains, as well as other remnants of his victims' bodies that he had in the apartment. He shows photos of them that he had taken in the bathtub. And after he finished telling on himself, they swiftly placed him under arrest. The remains of his 2 most recent victims are found and retrieved from the lake, so that their family could have closure and give them a proper burial. But his first victim, nothing of her is ever found. Like nothing. Whatever he had kept of her was completely gone. And mind you, he had killed her a year before the other ladies. At his trial, he introduces himself as the crossbow cannibal and shows no remorse whatsoever, which is not surprising. He is quoted as saying, "I am misanthropic. I don't have much time for the human race." In December of 2010, he is convicted of all 3 counts of murder and receives a life sentence without the possibility of paroling ever. In several of his post-trial interviews, he has made claims of having far more victims than the 3 that we know about. I'm double-minded about this. On one hand, I feel like it doesn't make sense for him to have gone so long between victim 1 and victim 2 when victim 1 had gone so well for him. But had he claimed his second victim right after the first, then he would of course have eaten up whatever he had of her as well, because he doesn't have anything from the first victim. So this day, none of Susan's remains have been found, and the only DNA evidence that they have linking her to him is blood splatter inside of his apartment. I'm not completely convinced that he did nothing in between that time. He did become a suspect in the unsolved case of Rebecca Hall, a 19-year-old that had disappeared April 13th of 2001 and was later found in an alleyway not far from where Stephen was living at the time. And she also fits his victim profile. And not only that, someone that Stephen was dating at the time that she had been discovered had actually come forward to police telling them that right after she had been discovered, he had taken her to that spot where they had found her in the alleyway and was very excited and giddy about the whole thing and being like in that spot. And it was very weird. But since then, no definitive proof has been discovered to link him to Rebecca Hall's case definitively, and he will not and has not confirmed nor denied his involvement. The details of her case are different, like it is a whole different MO, but it had taken place nearly a decade before his first known victim, so it's possible that he wasn't quite sure how he wanted to carry things out at the time. When police interview him regarding Rebecca Hall, he refuses to say anything at all. He does not give them an answer to any of their questions. Now, in the end, it turns out that the thug life was not for Stephen at all. Since the start of his sentence, he has been attacked by inmates on several occasions and has made many attempts to take his own life. Each time he has been unsuccessful, so he is still rotting in that little cell. And I just don't feel like the Yorkshire Ripper or the acid bath murderer would be proud of you. Stephen, you're a failure and you suck. His father, Stephen Sr., was 61 at the time that he had been arrested, but Stephen Sr. had not seen his son in over 10 years and said that he didn't even recognize his son from the pictures that were all over the media at first. Y'all, before I get out of here, let me tell y'all a little personal story. And if y'all judge me, I'm not telling y'all nothing else. I'm not. I'm just not going to tell y'all nothing else. Tell me why I went to the theater to see Saw 10. First of all, I realized afterward that I ain't seen Saw 6 through 9. Okay, first of all, in the last Saw that I saw, John Kramer was like ready to kick the bucket. So I was very shocked to see him in 10 still shucking and jiving. But that's beside the point, and that is not the story. I went to see the movie, and I was like, you know what? I don't have any friends here in Houston that like scary movies. So anytime I want to go see like a horror or a thriller, I have to go alone or on a date. So I say, you know what? I'm going to take myself out on a solo date. I'm going to bake me some hot, fresh chocolate chip cookies and put them in my purse and go in there and eat them in the dark. I go to my favorite little theater, and the way it's set up, I'll put a picture so you know. But if you're in Houston, it's iPick, and like the seats are like these little pods. It's so cute for a date, right? I get to the theater and I check beforehand, so I already know somebody has chosen the seat inside of my pod, like the other one. So I'm sharing a pod with a stranger. Cool. I get comfortable, y'all, and my mind goes to my cookies. But at this point, I'm kind of embarrassed to pull cookies out of my purse. Like, I'm a little ashamed. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not about to be eating my cookies out my purse. But I did come out to enjoy myself. So I'm about to pretend like I'm on a date, baby. Yes, land of delusion. I started pretending like me and this person was on a date. Something else to note about me is that if there was like a board of members for the delusional, I would definitely sit on the board, okay? I would be a chairman somewhere. So at this point, I decide I'm about to pretend like we on a date, right? It's already dark because I'm late to everything. Before I get in my pod, the other person is stretched out, baby, long legs, long feet, and is completely comfortable, laid out. And I don't look directly at the person because we're so close that it will just be weird for me to feel like there was no way for me to just look at them without being obvious that I'm just trying to look them in the face. So that's very important. I have not looked at this person. I've only seen long legs and long feet, okay? When I tell you I was really into it, I didn't put my knees up in the chair. My knees is kind of turned toward the person. I'm just, we on a date. I got my blanket. I'm acting scared when I'm not scared. I'm like, we on a date. This is my man. I was so into it that I almost started making comments to the person about the movie and how it was going. I had to stop myself. Like, girl, this is really a stranger. This is not your man. So anyway, as the movie is progressing, I look at the person's feet and I notice they like this, like turned in the toes. So I'm like, that's a peculiar stance for a guy who's into girls. And it's like, as soon as I had the thought, the V went from like this to like this. So I, being Queen Delulu, I take that as a sign from the universe. Like, no, girl, this your man. And y'all on a date. Y'all. The movie goes off. The person stands up and swings a purse around, puts it on their arm. I said, you have got to be kidding me, baby. I couldn't believe it. Like, our date went so well. How you gonna stand up and be a girl? Like, I mean, puts the purse on her arm, baby, and walks out. I look up and then I see hair and I'm like, was the hair there the whole time? Like, hindsight, my little experience was far more entertaining than the movie was, actually. And that's why I really advocate for delusion, because reality, like, all the time, that sounds like boredom and despair. But what I was really most upset about is the fact that I didn't eat my hot, fresh, delectable cookies out of my bag. Had I known it was a sister girl, baby, I would have offered her some cookies out of my bag. We could have ate the cookies together and things could have gone different. But child, moral of the story is don't be afraid to be weird, okay? Because had I just looked her in her eyes, I would have known what was going on. But anyway, that's all I got. Ain't got no more and got to go, okay? Please let me know your thoughts down below. Do not forget to like the video before you leave. Subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. I can't even do the intro because look who's here whining at my feet. You can sit up here while I do the intro, but then you gotta go, okay? You gonna be quiet? You gonna stop that? Probably not. Sorry there for a single pet parent trying to work and keep the lights on. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to all this snorting, girl, all that breathing hard, sniffing. I'm not gonna be able to hold you in film today. I'm so sorry about it. But I love you. Okay, probably now. I am really trying my best with y'all's beast today. Like I really am. Hey, pig. No, you can't lick the eczema cream off my hands, girl. I need that. What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and now welcome back. If you have good taste, you will not be disappointed, so go ahead and eat. I feel like all I can hear is you. Sometimes Bella is impossible to film with. And then she'll have these moments or these days where she's extra clingy. And I give her something to chew, but she doesn't go far. So now I'm trying to talk, film, and she's like right at my feet, gnawing on something. All right, I think I've peacefully gotten rid of her, at least for now. She is back. Today's video is going to be about a very sick man by the name of Stefan Griffiths. And I hate his last name. Okay, let me get myself together. Today, y'all, we are discussing the case of Stefan Griffiths. I believe it's Stefan. I'm not sure if it's Steven. Siri, what say you? Okay, we're gonna roll with Steven. I heard coughing back there. I'm dissecting now. This is what I'm up against. And he's a very creepy little boy. The crunching is crazy. Not long before, it's really throwing me off with that crunching in the back. Like, I just hope it's not loud. I'm having a terrible time. Am I ever gonna get this video filmed today? Let's see. Specifically over Peter Ratcliffe. I was about to say, I know his name wasn't no Peter Ratcliffe, and I thought the Peter part was wrong. And I've done a video on him. Peter Sutcliffe, the subject of true crime. Around the age of 30, we're not talking about Peter. We're talking about Peter's little offspring. So at this point, the video is going to be late. It's going to be late because I'm about to stop filming until she calms down. Now, in addition to casually eating us up on MySpace, casually eating us up should not probably be the words. He did become a suspect in the... Now y'all's little niece wants to lay down and peacefully take a nap. Okay,